And that's why Bitcoin is so wonderful, because it takes the trust away from humans and puts it on a mathematical computer protocol. I don't have to trust you. You don't have to trust me. The protocol itself, the software itself, will verify the amount of Bitcoin, who owns what Bitcoin, what transactions go through, and so forth. It's all math. It's all trustless. And it moves like this at the speed of light. That's what makes Bitcoin so great. It separates money from the state, and it removes trust.
I wrote The Bible and Bitcoin for you, Bible-believing Christian, and in it I lay out the biblical basis for what money is, why our current fiat monetary system is ungodly, and how Bitcoin is the best and most viable, biblically compliant replacement for government fiat money. There's even a small group study guide in the back with additional resources to study with your church small group. Get it on Amazon or pay with Bitcoin at thebibleandbitcoin.com for a discount.
Welcome to another edition of the Bible and Bitcoin podcast. I am your host, Alin Armstrong, aka Pastor Coin. And on today's episode, I want to give you the comprehensive, frequently asked questions regarding Bitcoin for Christians. You're either here because a friend sent you this video because you had some questions regarding Bitcoin, or you're a Christian Bitcoiner already. So let's just go ahead and dive in. These are the most frequently asked questions Christians ask about Bitcoin. How do I know? Because I put out a Twitter poll, of course. And what is more accurate than a Twitter poll? Nothing. So with that said, these are the most frequently asked questions, and you can find these in my book, The Bible and Bitcoin, A Theological Exploration of Human Time and Energy as well. Number one, is Bitcoin the mark of the beast? Now, I just released a podcast episode about that, so I'm not going to belabor this question. So go ahead and check out that episode for a deep dive about what I think about the mark of the beast. Let's just do a little overview here. Is Bitcoin the mark of the beast? The quick, short answer is no. This is a question I get so much. It's becoming a bit annoying, to be frank with you. People will think like this. Typically, if it's digital, it's bad. Digital plus money equals bad. Now, I can understand and sympathize with somebody who has that viewpoint and who reasons that way because, yeah, I mean, money as we know it is a unit of account issued by a government. And as my friend Luke Broyles likes to put it, fiat money or dollars, in other words, are basically political currency units. That's what they are. It's just political money. So if you take that political money and you give the government all the authority, which they already have over the money anyways, but you give them even more authority by digitizing 100% of the money, allowing them to automatically tax you, allowing them to track every single purchase you make in real time, just like that, and allowing them to press a button and freeze your money. There's even talk about governments being able to make your money expire. And could you imagine that? You either spend it or it expires. So obviously, digital money, when it's controlled by a centralized government, is a horrible, horrible idea. I don't want you to think that I think CBDCs are good, but that's the point of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is digital money without a centralized entity, institution, government controlling it. What does this have to do with the mark of the beast? Well, there's a lot of different interpretations, different takes about exactly what the mark of the beast is. Some people think the mark of the beast is going to be a sort of digital ID, microchip sort of thing where the one world government is going to track everybody, mark everybody with this thing. And of course, a big component of that is the issue of buying and selling. And so I see how people who have that view of the mark of the beast look at CBDCs, digital currencies, and think, boy, that looks and sounds very familiar. If it walks like the Antichrist, if it quacks like the Antichrist, it's probably the Antichrist. I get it. However, Bitcoin is not a centralized government microchip control thing. Bitcoin is decentralized. Bitcoin is money that has rules and no rulers. So let's just go ahead and compare this interpretation of the mark of the beast with Bitcoin. Number one, the mark of the beast is imposed by a tyrannical, godless state. Bitcoin is not imposed by anybody. Bitcoin is a free software you can download on your computer. Of course, Bitcoins have value because people place value in them and so forth. But the software to run the Bitcoin software, it's free open source software. You can download Bitcoin Core, you can install it on your computer, you can run it. Now, getting Bitcoins, well, you're going to have to either earn them, or you're going to have to buy them or get them by other means. So, number one, mark of the beast, tyrannical state enforced, Bitcoin, free open source software. Bitcoin is pseudonymous. It's not anonymous, it's pseudonymous. It would make no sense for an antichrist figure who's trying to control and track and do all this nefarious stuff to use Bitcoin, because it's if you use it in a certain way, you can mask your identity quite easily. The mark of the beast is associated with a man, right? It says that 666 is the number of the beast or the number of a man. Now, some translations say the number of man, but again, see my mark of the beast video for my interpretation. I'm just talking about this general idea of what most people think the mark of the beast is. Bitcoin is not associated with a man. Now, some will say Satoshi Nakamoto. Well, sure, he created it. However, he's not in control of it either. There's no back door. People say there's a back door. Satoshi's going to crash the system. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of how Bitcoin works. No one man can crash the Bitcoin system. Bitcoin is a software, like I said, running on tens of thousands of independent computers. You would have to hunt down every single Bitcoin node and delete those nodes off those computers to, quote, shut the system down. You're playing whack-a-mole in the dark with no radar. So this is not possible. And by the way, Satoshi's name adds up. If you use Hebrew gematria, it adds up to 630. So no, he is not the Antichrist. Some understand Bitcoin to be a spiritual mark. The mark of the beast, rather, to be a spiritual mark. This is my interpretation. Obviously, Bitcoin is not a spiritual mark from the devil, and so no, Bitcoin is not the mark of the beast. But you will, and I know I'll continue to hear people say it's the gateway. Well, maybe it's not the mark of the beast. It's the gateway to the mark of the beast. Look, it goes like this. There is either you have freedom money or you have tyranny money. Bitcoin is freedom money. Now, in the early days of the internet, with email and stuff, you had governments trying to leverage the internet in order to track people and to, do national security, as they say. It's always national security. And then there was encryption, and there was a war. I mean, some people, a metaphorical war, of course. Some people, the cypherpunks, thought people should have privacy on the internet. People should be able to do things, transfer information on the internet in a private way, while others thought no, mainly the government, they should not. And so this is what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is that cypherpunk cryptography of money, while CBDCs, fiat money, are the centralized government-controlled so-called beast money, if you will. So understand Bitcoin in this way. It's not digital bad. Bitcoin is digitizing money in a way that brings freedom to people and disarms the state. My favorite characteristic of Bitcoin is this: Bitcoin separates money from the state. Bitcoin separates money from the state. Is Bitcoin the mark of the beast? No, it's not. I know I said I wouldn't belabor the point, but I guess I did. Anyways, let's move on to the next question. Not really a question, more of an issue people have with Bitcoin. Christians have with Bitcoin. They'll say Bitcoin is too volatile. Bitcoin is too volatile because you will see the price of Bitcoin go up and down, and it does it in a dramatic fashion. You can have huge pumps, 50%, 100%, 200%, 300% in a matter of a year, and then you can have crashes, 50, 60, 70, even 80% crashes in the span of a year. Now, obviously, Bitcoin is volatile. We understand that. But it's only volatile when it's measured against fiat money. The reason it's volatile is because Bitcoin is a scarce asset. There's only 21 million Bitcoins that will ever exist. And fiat is a currency. Fiat currency is constantly inflating. There's constantly more. Like, you see the U.S. debt clock. Go to usdebtclock.org and you'll see that number. Just these numbers that will blow your mind, continuing to rise 35 trillion. Maybe it's 36 by the time you're listening or watching this episode here. And when you take Bitcoin, which is a scarce 21 million non-inflationary money, and you take fiat, which is continually inflating, it just doesn't stop, and these two things collide, what happens? Volatility. Saifuddin Ammous has said Bitcoin's volatility derives from the fact that its supply is utterly inflexible and not responsive to demand changes because it's programmed to grow at a predetermined rate. So again, you got the unmovable object, Bitcoin, the unstoppable force, fiat. Boom, they collide, and you have this tremendous volatility. Now, if you're smart, you'll see Bitcoin has recovered. I don't want to say, look, maybe you're offended that I said that. I don't mean it in an offensive way. But if you look at the Bitcoin chart, you see it has recovered from these 80% dumps to make new highs. So obviously there's something to this Bitcoin thing, and you can use the volatility to your advantage. Volatility, some say, is vitality. Yes, Bitcoin is volatile, and maybe its volatility is too much for you. Don't worry, in the future it will be less volatile, but it will be a lot more valuable. So, this is a personal preference. I don't mind a little volatility. You know, it's your risk profile. You have to assess it yourself. Is it volatile? Yes, but understand why. Bitcoin's not volatile because the system in the software in the protocol is unstable. No, as a matter of fact, if you look at just the Bitcoin protocol, it's extremely stable. It's not crashed. It's not had any downtime, and it's all its years of its existence. Transactions every 10 minutes are validated. This is one of the most secure networks in the world. It's fiat that is volatile. So when you measure it in fiat, yeah, I mean, you're going to have crazy swings. But the protocol itself is sound and solid. And I think as Christians, we should look at the protocol itself and judge it based on itself. And obviously, fiat is just an inflationary mess. And so when you have this stable hard money and this incredibly inflationary fiat money, and when these things collide, oh boy, do we have some fun with it. The next question, or perhaps you could say concern, is Christians will say Bitcoin is gambling or it's a Ponzi scheme. I find this interesting. Gambling, I suppose it could be gambling if you're speculating on the price short term. It might be a sort of gamble, if you will. But Ponzi scheme? No, it's not a Ponzi scheme. As a matter of fact, the Ponzi scheme is actually the fiat money system. That's the real Ponzi scheme because it's inflationary by nature. It needs more money injected into the system or it collapses. Now, what does that sound like? Boy, oh boy, that sounds like the classic Ponzi scheme. It only operates because more money keeps getting pumped in. Look, you stop pumping liquidity, you stop printing money into the system and start taking it out, the whole thing collapses like a Ponzi. Fiat money, and my good friend, Mr. Greg Foss likes to say, fiat is the Ponzi. It's the fiat Ponzi scheme. And it is. Bitcoin is not a Ponzi. It is not. Look, you go to casinos, you gamble, you play games, whatever. Bitcoin is stable. It's a stable protocol. Do degens gamble on the price and use leverage and get wrecked and get liquidated? Yes, they do. But don't do that. Don't be a degen. You know, I like to look at it like this when I'm talking with Christian believers. People will say about Christianity, oh, I went to church. They're all a bunch of hypocrites. And you dig a little deeper, you say, well, what do you mean they're all a bunch of hypocrites? Not every Christian's a hypocrite. I mean, that's a bold statement. Well, I went to church and this one guy was really a jerk to me, or I dated this girl and she was, not exactly virtuous and all this type of stuff. Look, you don't judge Christianity, the Bible, Jesus Christ, based on the actions of a few people. If you're going to do it right, you judge it based on what Christ has said in the Bible. You judge the religion based on the documents in the sources of that religion, not how some people who say they adhere to the religion act. So let's apply that same standard. Are there jerk Christians? You better believe it. You better believe it. I have had more personal hurt come from Christians than anybody else in my life. Okay, I get it. But Jesus is still Lord because he's Lord. They don't change that. So let's apply that standard to everything, including Bitcoin. So are there some degens who gamble, use leverage, get wrecked on Bitcoin? Of course. But is that what the protocol was made for? No, it wasn't. The protocol was made to be a hard, stable form of peer-to-peer cash. And when you look at the system and how it operates, if you're watching this and you're a Bitcoin skeptic, do a couple Bitcoin transactions. Just do it. Try it. And you will see, wow, this thing is stable and it just works. It just works. Bitcoin is not a gambling software. People use it to gamble with degen ways, sure. But it's not that. That's not what it's made for. Just like there's Christians who do degen things, doesn't mean that Christ came to start a degen religion. Apply the same standard to everything. Yes. And if you're really, want to give credibility, I don't think it really... Anyways, the United States Securities and Exchange Commission agrees. And maybe this for you gives them Bitcoin credibility. To me, it doesn't matter. But they have agreed, the SEC, that Bitcoin is not a gambling or a Ponzi scheme. It's actually a commodity like gold or oil or whatever. And speaking of gold, that comes to the next frequently asked question. What about gold? Bitcoin Well is a non-custodial Bitcoin platform in Canada and the USA. That means every single Satoshi you buy goes straight to your self-custody. They offer free withdrawals, a simple 1% spread, and they have the Bitcoin wishing well, where you can win up to 1,000,000 Satoshis by earning points and throwing the coin in the well. In fact, you get 5 coin tosses to the Bitcoin wishing well when you sign up at bitcoinwell.com/pastorcoin. And if you stick around Bitcoin long enough, you'll see the beef between Bitcoin and gold. As far as I'm concerned, I have no problem with gold. Gold is fine by me. Gold was used as money for as long as humans have recorded history. In the Bible, we see mentions of gold, even in Genesis chapter 2, as soon as Genesis chapter 2. Gold, obviously, some Christians will say it's a creation of God. It's God's money, if you will. He put it on this planet so that we could mine, extract, and use it as a fair, honest form of money. And gold in itself has the best properties, I would say, for money in terms of a physical thing. Gold is it. I mean, it's pretty scarce. It's hard to extract. It's indestructible. It has the qualities you would want in money. However, as time went on, people got more sophisticated, and gold began to have some problems. Now its biggest problem, obviously, is transportation. Gold is heavy. It's a metal. You can't really transport large amounts of gold quickly across the sea without incurring a lot of expense, a lot of risk. So that's a big problem. And as that problem proliferated, humans came up with a solution. Well, why don't we just issue notes? We'll centralize the gold in a location, and we'll issue notes. We'll say this note represents so much gold. So you don't have to carry the big gold around. You know the gold's still there. But now you have this note, this paper note, and you can go to the bank or wherever the gold is stored and say, hey, I want my gold, and they'd give you your gold. Great solution. Now you just got to carry around paper. However, now you have to trust. Also, gold's kind of hard to verify. It's easy to fake it. However, back to the paper notes. Now you have to trust the central entity that they're not going to print more paper. Now, let me just give you an example. So you come to me, I'm the bank. You say, here is 10 kilograms of gold. You're very rich. Here's 10 kilograms of gold. I want some notes issued so I can trade without, having to incur the risk of carrying this thing around. Because, you get robbed. You can lose it. You want it to be safe in a vault. I say, okay, fine. I give you 10 kilograms worth of paper notes for the gold. However, the next guy that comes in, I give them the same amount, except I print a little more. And I print a little more, and I print a little more. And before you know it, I have, or the economy rather, has more paper notes than gold. So if everybody came into the bank at once and said, I want my gold, well, there'd be a problem because there's more paper than there is gold. And that's exactly what continued to happen. The temptation to print more paper notes than you have gold proved to be too much for people. Far too much through history. And so that's what we have, and it's called inflation. And eventually it got so bad that the United States, as you know, in 1971 completely removed the gold standard, and now money is just paper or numbers on a screen at the Federal Reserve. So gold has this attack vector, maybe you could say, or this vulnerability of humans centralizing and then lying about the amount they have. People say, let's just get back on the gold standard. You could, but then you'd have to trust that humans would all of a sudden become responsible. Then you would have to believe that the centralized institutions are going to be honest this time. Now I ask you, do you believe that? Do you believe the centralized institutions which will custody the gold will be honest? Well, how about we don't have centralized institutions? How about we all just transact with gold? But then you're going to run into the same problem. It's cumbersome. It's heavy. It's a security risk. You're going to really want to... No, people don't want that. And we'll just go right back into another fiat Ponzi system. Now, I'll just say this. Gold is not the flawed problem. Gold is not the problem. God made gold, and gold is perfect the way it is. The problem is you and me. The problem is humanity. We're just not trustworthy. And that's why Bitcoin is so wonderful, because it takes the trust away from humans and puts it on a mathematical computer protocol. I don't have to trust you. You don't have to trust me. The protocol itself, the software itself, will verify the amount of Bitcoin, who owns what Bitcoin, what transactions go through, and so forth. It's all math. It's all trustless. And it moves like this at the speed of light. That's what makes Bitcoin so great. It separates money from the state, and it removes trust. It removes trust, and that's a beautiful thing. Bitcoin, people will say, is bad for the environment because it uses high energy, lots of energy consumption. And people will say this has a negative impact on the environment, as if energy usage is bad. Michael Saylor, I think, said something to the effect that the civilizations which harness energy most efficiently win. We need more energy. Energy is good for humanity. It helps us live longer, live better, be healthier. Energy usage is not the problem. If Bitcoin can harness all this energy to become the global settlement layer of humanity, a fair financial network with no rulers. Rules, remember, but no rulers. That is worth the energy consumption in itself. In itself, that would save humanity so much grief. Wars are started because money. Come on, you know it. I know it. We all know it. All these wars, all this, it's all about the money. If we had a fair, just monetary system where humans couldn't manipulate, you'd see a lot less war. I'm not saying Bitcoin's going to cure humanity. No. It's not going to stop war in general, no. But it's going to severely limit it. So we need more energy. A biblical worldview says that God made earth for humans, not humans for the earth. The earth is there to serve us, to help us become fruitful and multiply, to be a life-giving place. Plus, the energy used by Bitcoin's not a waste anyways. It's one of the best uses of energy. Now, you might not agree, and that's okay. But as Christians, we should adopt a human-centered view of the climate change issue. Okay, I don't even think it's an issue. I think it's a scam. We need more energy, not less. So the frequently asked question is, Bitcoin is bad for the environment. Is it not? No, it's not bad for the environment. You know what is bad for the environment? If you want to make that argument, you know what is bad for the environment? The military. The banking sector, which uses more energy than Bitcoin does, by the way, to give us a unfair, rigged Ponzi system. Nobody ever says that's a waste of energy. Food for thought. Eat it up. What if and this is one of the more popular ones. What if the government bans Bitcoin or shuts off the internet? Okay. If the government shuts off the internet, we got bigger issues, okay? I'm not worried about Bitcoin. We got some big problems in that case. And what if the government bans Bitcoin? Well, look at China. China seems to ban Bitcoin every week. Ban, unban, ban, unban, ban, unban. The government won't ban Bitcoin. The government can't ban. It can try. It can say, this is the best the government can do. It's illegal to use Bitcoin. But it can't stop you. It can't stop you any more than it can stop you from opening your laptop and typing things on your laptop. It's software. The government can say it's illegal, but it can't really stop you. And the government's not going to shut off the internet because they need the internet too. The fiat money system needs the internet too. Everything is entangled with the internet, if you haven't noticed. Barring a nuclear disaster, in which case we're not even here, most of us, humanity will not go backwards in terms of technological innovation. We might go forwards to our detriment. Technology might get so advanced that we end up hurting ourselves with it. Yeah, that might be true. But we're not going backwards. It's not like we're all going to just one day think, well, we don't really want the internet anymore. Let's just stop using it. Technology, you can't put the rabbit back in the hat. He's out. Cat's out of the bag, if you will. He's not going back in. We're not going back. And you want to be a doom and gloomer? Okay, be a doom and gloomer. But guess what? You're listening to this on the internet. You're watching this on the internet. You're making arguments against Bitcoin on the internet. That's the funniest thing. On Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, you see people commenting, Bitcoin bad or whatever. The government's going to shut it down or shut the internet down. Dude, you're using the internet to make those statements. Do you not see the irony? Do you not see the irony? So, government bans it. That's more likely than them shutting the internet off. And by now, I don't think any of those two things are going to happen. If China is not going to ban it, I guess they just unbanned it. But if they can't ban it, then it's not happening. Or it's unlikely. Okay, people will say to me, Alan, stop talking about Bitcoin. Just stick to the gospel. Okay, fine. Just stick to the gospel. Usually when I hear that statement, just stick to the gospel, it's often an excuse to avoid the effort needed to understand a new thing. Or you just don't get it. You don't want to get it. Is it a gospel issue? Bitcoin. People will say, no, you're crazy. Bitcoin's not a gospel issue. Okay, is money a gospel issue? Jesus talk about money? Oh, all the time. Is it in the Bible? Oh, all the time. Bitcoin is a new form of money, therefore it's a gospel issue that we need to judge with the gospel lens. Bitcoin is the fair financial system. Bitcoin is rules without rulers. Bitcoin is a financial system that is a equal weight in measure. It's a gospel issue. Money is a gospel issue. And Bitcoin is now, the next question, what about 1 Timothy 6:10? The love of money. Boy, oh boy, you talk about Bitcoin, you got a Bitcoin podcast. You must be a lover of Bitcoin, therefore you're a lover of money. And 1 Timothy 6:10 says that is the root of all kinds of evil. Absolutely, you can love Bitcoin in a sinful way. Absolutely, and people do. You got these clowns out here like Max Kaiser, and I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not afraid to say who says Bitcoin is God. That's a clown take. That's a stupid, dumb thing to say. Bitcoin is not God. It's a blasphemous thing to say. Bitcoin is not God. Not even close. How much stronger language do you want me to use? Bitcoin is just computer software. It's money. That's it. It has no divine essence, has no divine properties. It's a fair financial network and system. Saying Bitcoin is God is as imbecilic, I don't even think that's a word, as saying the internet is God. The internet's closer to God than Bitcoin is because look at all the information on the internet. But the internet is not God, and Bitcoin is not God. It's blasphemy. It's disgusting to suggest such a thing. Can you fall into the love of money by loving Bitcoin? Yes, you can. You can make an idol out of everything, including Bitcoin. So what about 1 Timothy 6:10? What about it? It's true. I agree. The love of money. You can even say, make a maybe in 100 years from now, and Bitcoin will be money. It'll just be the money. People won't even know the word money. It'll be Bitcoin. And the translations will say, for the love of Bitcoin is the root of all kinds of evil. Of course. I have no problem with this verse. It's true. Don't love Bitcoin. It's just money. Another question, what makes Bitcoin different from other cryptos? Other cryptos are scams. But frankly, Bitcoin was created in a fair way, a fair launch, if you will. It had a value of 0. Satoshi had no idea if this would work. He just made this Bitcoin thing and he released it, and people downloaded the software, began to mine, and it organically became what it is. It had no marketing team, nothing. Value of absolutely 0 on launch day. And through the free market working, Bitcoin has gone from 0 to what it is today. Over 60,000, almost 70,000 US dollars per Bitcoin, over $1 trillion market cap. That happened organically. It just happened. It worked. These other cryptos, they have teams and corporate sponsorships and this and all this stuff, pre-launch coin offerings and all this stuff. Bitcoin is a pure launch. Nothing has happened like it before, and I don't think anything will happen like it again. So when it comes to other cryptos, just don't waste your time. Okay, don't waste your time. A lot of these things are just pump and dumps. Just team puts out a thing or a meme coin, it pumps, they dump, it's gone forever. So what makes Bitcoin different than other cryptos? Bitcoin is fair, honest. It had a fair, honest launch, an organic life cycle, and it's continuing to go on its way. People will ask, how much Bitcoin should I buy? I don't know. Whatever you're comfortable with. I'm not going to sit here and say, go and buy, take all your money and buy Bitcoin. I don't know. Whatever you're comfortable with. It's your conviction. You buy what you think you should buy. I'm not a financial advisor here. And one of the more interesting questions is Bitcoin unfair to the poor? Well, you'll see Bitcoin's price now, $70,000 per coin. How can an average person afford that? Well, average people can't afford a whole Bitcoin. At this point in the game, it's too expensive. But you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy just a fraction of a Bitcoin. So is it unfair to the poor? No, I think it's actually very fair to everybody, because everybody can get into Bitcoin whenever they want, and they can get a fraction of a Bitcoin, get $1 worth or whatever, and you will benefit by the network effects of Bitcoin. So is it unfair to the poor? No, I don't think it's unfair to the poor whatsoever. These are, according to the Twitter polls and the questions I've received throughout these years in Bitcoin, the most common, frequently asked questions about Bitcoin. Are there any ones I missed? Probably. If I have, please leave a comment, send a message. Let me know. Maybe I can do a part 2, frequently asked questions about Bitcoin from a Christian perspective. That's all I got for this episode. I hope it was a blessing. For those of you who are Bitcoiners, I hope this edified you and helped you understand a little bit more. For those of you who aren't Bitcoiners, who are Christians, who are looking into this thing, I hope this was helpful. I hope I wasn't offensive or unnecessarily harsh, although I probably was. Forgive me for that if I was. If you have any questions, you need a little bit more help, somebody to bounce some ideas off of, go ahead and DM me. I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, I'm on all the socials, whatever. Find me, message me. I'll be happy to help you as an individual or even as a church. So, thanks for watching this episode. Until next time, grace and peace. Your family, your nation, and your world needs strong men. The devil wants men weak, emasculated, and addicted to porn. This is why I designed the Slaying the Beast course to help men take back the dominion porn stole from them. This course will help you discover your identity as God's image, how porn leverages and twists that against you, and how with God's help you can turn the tables on the beast and live free.
There's also access to a Discord server where you can have fellowship with others in the fight. You do not have to wait any longer to conquer this beast once and for all. Go to lifegiverchurch.net to get started today.